Christmas and happy Hanukkah and happy holidays to everybody who's celebrating something over the next couple of days and weeks. Welcome to the final scheduled episode of Scott Fox After 9. This is the last one that I've officially got on my agenda, although I admit it's totally possible if something big happens or if I'm just bored, I might jump in and release another episode over the holidays. But other than that, I'm going to unwind. I'm going to try and disconnect a little bit. I'm going to spend some time with the people that are important to me, and I encourage you to do the exact same thing. There's going to be some political conversations that come up over the holidays, and I'm going to try and touch on that in this episode and do a little bit of a retrospective. When you think about everything that has changed in the last year, and then you look at where we are now, with a little bit of hindsight, we can ask ourselves, how much progress did we make? Think about it. This time last year, Chrystia Freeland had just stepped down as Canada's finance minister. Prime Minister Trudeau was on his way out the door. South of the border, Donald Trump was talking about the 51st state and the need to impose tariffs on Canada and around the world. A year later, Prime Minister Trudeau is gone. The carbon tax is gone. We have a new prime minister with a new set of ideals and agendas, and Pierre, who leads the Conservative Party and had a big lead in the polls at this time last year, is still in the opposition benches. The Liberals found a way to win another federal election. But what's changed? We have a different prime minister, but we still don't have a deal with the Americans. We are still in a dire situation when it comes to money and the middle class in this country. We've got a major immigration problem. We've got a major crime problem. It seems to me that all of the issues that we all agreed were important issues a year ago are still the issues in front of us today. Now, I may stand corrected as we go through some of the year-end interviews that are now starting to show up from some of the mainstream media outlets. So let's dive into that and let's do a little retrospective together on the year that was. I'm going to start off with Prime Minister Mark Carney. I'm not sure why, but I'm told he did not do a year-end interview with CTV for some reason. But of course, he went to see his friends at the CBC. He sat down with Rosemary Barton, and this aired yesterday on CBC's Rosemary Barton Live. Here's a little bit of the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, hello. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me, Rosemary.
You were elected, I think it's fair to say, in part to deal with Donald Trump. But since the election, you have dropped retaliatory tariffs, you've given up the digital services tax, and you apologized for an ad that the Premier of Ontario ran. So I guess Canadians might want to know whether we are any further ahead for doing or not doing any of those things.
Well, we are in a lot better position than we were 9 months ago. The challenge remains that the United States has fundamentally changed its trading relationships with everybody in the world, Canada included. But one of the points I made right from the start when I was running to be leader of the Liberal Party and then running in the general election is we need to control what we can control. We can't necessarily control Donald Trump, I think everyone's figured that out, or the United States of America. What we can control is what we build here at home. You look at the progress we've made. One Canadian Economy Act. Okay, we'll go into this, but it's important to underscore because this is what's going to make the big difference for Canadians.
I get that.
Sorry, may I finish? Which is,
wow, the Prime Minister is so bad with female reporters. I don't know what it is, but he just comes off so condescending. If you could see the body language and the visual here, it is really, really strange. The Prime Minister says we're in a much better position now than we were a year ago. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like your life is better at Christmas 2025 than it was at Christmas 2024? Do you feel like we're doing much better? Now, the Prime Minister here is probably, if I'm guessing correctly, he's going to go in and list off some of the achievements. Maybe we should hear those before we make a final assessment. Let's give the Prime Minister a little bit of time here. Here is him explaining why we're better off.
So we've made huge progress in terms of building here at home, massive progress on new trade deals and relationships abroad. All of that puts us in a stronger position as a country, more independent, better future, stronger negotiating position with the United States.
And that's the other piece of what you were. That's the other piece that you were elected on. But you were also elected on standing up to Donald Trump and getting a deal with him. And yet, since you've been elected,
and yet we have the best deal of any country in the world.
But that's not what you were elected on. You were elected to get.
Was I not elected to get the best deal of any country in the world? I would have thought.
So that's it. You're done.
better is always possible, Rosemary. We can always do better than where we are, and we look to do better. But if you look at where we are relative to other countries, 85% of our trade, as you know, is tariff-free. We have unparalleled access relative to other countries, including Mexico, our partner in CUSMA, to the U.S. market. Now, we're just entering the next phase of these discussions, negotiations. There'll be negotiations in the end around the review of CUSMA, which will start early in the next year.
Okay. Do you get that sense? Do you feel that way? I mean, the Prime Minister said we're building, and I'm hard pressed to find any examples of what we're building. I can't find any new homes that are being built. I can't find any liquid natural gas liquefaction facilities. I can't find any pipelines. Like, I can't point to anything that we're actually building. The Prime Minister did say we've got the One Canada Act, and that was supposed to make the whole country equal. Take down those interprovincial trade barriers. So in Ontario, for example, we could trade with Alberta the exact same way that we would trade with, say, Kentucky in America. A lot of those interprovincial trade barriers, though, still exist. So nothing's built. And we still have the interprovincial trade barriers. The Prime Minister says we've got the best deal going with the Americans. I would again point out, though, that was thanks to Justin Trudeau. CUSMA is the reason that 85% of the goods are going back and forth tariff-free, and that might be the only reason that Canada is still scraping by as we are right now, because in specific sectors, there certainly is no deal, and people are starting to feel the pinch from tariffs. So let me ask you again, are you better off Christmas 2025 than you were Christmas 2024? And if the answer is no, well, you just heard the guy who had a direct impact on that. The Prime Minister says a lot of nice things, but a lot of them don't really come to fruition. You know, the knock on Justin Trudeau's government was lots of announcements, no follow through. In Prime Minister Carney's case, there's been some announcements and not really much follow through. They keep telling us, just hold on, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. As I look down the line, and I don't have a crystal ball, but a lot of those jobs numbers that a lot of the Liberal government took a victory lap on over the last couple of months, they were really celebrating all these great jobs numbers in October and November. Well, a lot of them were seasonal and a lot of them were part-time. Those are going to get canceled in January and February. People who hired seasonal workers, let seasonal workers go when the season is over. So we know there's going to be a lot more unemployment coming our way very soon. We also know the Federal Civil Service has already informed employees right after the Christmas break, they're going to let them know if they've still got a job. So when we're losing jobs in the federal government and we're losing a lot of the part-time seasonal jobs that got created for the holidays, things don't look very good here, guys. I think that's part of the reason that so many pundits, myself included, are fully expecting that the latter part of winter and the early part of spring, Canadians are going to be demanding an election because unemployment is going to be running wild. And especially if we don't make any progress on renewing the CUSMA agreement with the USA and Mexico, there's not a lot of reason to be too optimistic here. It looks like there's a lot of bad news on the way. And that could be part of the reason that the Prime Minister is trying to put a nice spin on it now, trying to give you all those good feelings now because the bad ones are coming.
So let me ask you what you understand Donald Trump's position on CUSMA to be right now. You had that meeting with him and President Sheinbaum not too long ago.
Yes.
At that point, did he say the deal is dead, I'm ripping it up? What indications did you get?
He did not say any of those things. What we talked about, the two presidents and myself, we talked about the process for reviewing, renegotiating CUSMA. We talked about potential timelines, although we didn't settle on specific timelines for that. The expectation is that it's going to unfold over the course of 2026. If I'm fortunate to be with you this time next year, we'll be talking about that progress. So that's the first thing. The second is I will refer back to what I just said and what I've been saying from day one. Control what we can control, what we can't.
Is there anything to be said for the fact that you don't actually need to control Donald Trump? You just need to work with Donald Trump. I mean, the Americans set us up in a way that we could have made a deal. They say they don't need anything Canada's got, but they kind of need a lot of what Canada's got, particularly our heavy crude oil. they also need some electricity, and they need softwood lumber, and they need steel and aluminum, and they need all kinds of different things. If we had worked with Trump the way Trump wanted to be worked with, and the same way that all of the other countries who did get a deal with the Americans, in the same way that they dealt with him, I feel like we really got in our way this year. You know, the ad that Doug Ford put out, the tariff ad featuring Ronald Reagan, that certainly didn't help. But you know what? There was way more than that. Banning U.S. alcohol from Canadian store shelves, I feel like that was a major irritant. That was something we didn't need to do. It was something the Americans did not do to us. But we've got premiers that are digging in their heels saying, no, no, no. They're controlling our liquor store like it's their own, and they're doing it because they've got a personal vendetta against Donald Trump. There's a lot of little things like that I feel like when Mark Carney says we have to focus on what we can control, I think we could have controlled the negotiation with the Americans. Again, we have something they want. They're pretending they don't, but we do, and they need it. We just didn't really play that nice in the sandbox. That's the way it seems to me.
Stephen Guilbeault resigned from your cabinet, and when he did, he was very critical. What it took to get the deal with Alberta. You had to get rid of suspend clean energy regulations. You had to get rid of or not put in place the cap on oil and gas emissions. You had to say we're willing to not use the tanker ban anymore. There are a lot of Canadians that voted for you based on your bona fides on climate change, and then they see you willing to hand all those things over in order to get some sort of energy deal with Alberta. What do you say to them when they say, we're disappointed, this wasn't quite the person we thought he was?
I'm the same person, same values, care about the issue fundamentally, and because I care about the issue fundamentally, I care about what gets done.
Sure.
Not what is put in regulation, not what is said, not what is prohibited, and then nothing happens.
So you didn't think any of those things were going to happen?
The reality is, there is no carbon capture being built in Alberta. There has not been because of these various measures. There isn't large-scale nuclear being built in Alberta. There are no interties between a clean electricity grid in BC and Alberta, which helps breathe that. The effective carbon price, sorry, may I finish?
Yes.
The effective carbon price in Alberta is only $20 a ton. So what we did with Alberta is to change all of that with the MOU.
Well, except with all due respect, you said you can have a pipeline if you do the carbon capture storage. You said we're not going to put a cap on oil and gas emissions. You have to do a large industrial emitter, and you already had a federal backstop to use to enforce that. So I'm not really sure what you're getting out of it.
We need the investment now.
Yeah.
What the country, it's not about me, what the country is getting out of it is action. The country is getting investment in clean energy, investment in nuclear, investment in carbon capture. Investment in carbon capture, most people will hear that and of course they think, well, what does that actually mean? It means the equivalent of taking 90% of the cars and trucks off the road in Alberta. These are major investments. Listen, we have too much regulation, not enough action. We're meeting on a day when the results of the previous climate plan are being released, and the fact is we're not going to meet our targets under a climate plan that had all the things in it that you said.
I'm going to just interrupt the Prime Minister there to point out we weren't going to hit those targets under Justin Trudeau either. If you are very much an environmentalist and you're concerned about Canada's carbon footprint, neither Prime Minister, Trudeau nor Carney, was going to hit our Paris Climate Accord targets. It's weird because the Prime Minister there seems to say a lot of the things that I think Canadians want him to say. We need less regulation. We need to move forward on this. But he is still very much tied to that environmental thing, and he did put carbon capture in that MOU with Alberta. Carbon capture is a technology that he personally makes a lot of money off of via Brookfield. They're very much in the carbon capture industry. So some folks are going to point that out. And in fairness, I want to get that on the record too, that yes, the Prime Minister does have a vested interest in Alberta going with carbon capture. When he says we have too many regulations, though, that is something that he had direct impact over. If he wanted to take away the tanker ban, for example, off the west coast of British Columbia, he could do it. We could be shipping our oil out a lot more freely than we do now. There's a lot of regulations in place, not the least of which is the industrial carbon tax that's making life more expensive. I'm just going to do one more round of questions here for the Prime Minister. Again, this is from Rosemary Barton live yesterday on the CBC. It is their year-end interview. Then I'm going to get to the year-end with Pierre Poilievre. Here's more of the Prime Minister.
When I spoke to Pierre Poilievre recently, his message to you was that if you want a majority, you have to go back to the Canadian people to get it and not do it, by his words, dirty backroom deals. Are you comfortable getting a majority by people crossing the floor?
Well, we're in a parliament, and when we pass legislation, we need more people voting for it than against it. I mean, that's the way. Last time I checked, that's the way Parliament works.
Right, but that's not what you're doing now. Now you're attracting MPs to the party.
MPs are attracted to what we're doing.
So there's no active recruitment happening?
Premiers are attracted to what we're doing.
I want to go back to what my question was, which was, are you comfortable getting a majority government through people crossing the floor?
I am comfortable commanding the confidence of the House of Commons and getting through the House of Commons, getting support in the House of Commons and votes, and obviously votes and support in the House of Commons for legislation that is going to protect Canadian communities, that's going to build this country, that's going to make our country more independent, more sustainable, more prosperous.
Are there active recruitment of MPs from other parties happening?
I think that there is a spectrum of MPs with varying degrees of recognition of the serious situation the country is in. Varying degrees of recognition that we need action, not slogans, that we need cooperation with the provinces, that we need to come together and work together. Then those individuals face their own decisions about how they can best support that agenda. My job as Prime Minister, our job as the government is to put forward our best view of that agenda. Yes, we will compromise in legislation in committees. You've seen some of that. The border bill, there's compromise on C9, there's other adjustments made in legislation. We will make adjustment for legislation to get through. But yes, if somebody sees that, as Mr. D'Entremont and Mr. Ma both saw, that they can support the broad direction of the government, and they want to join the governing party, then they have and they will, and they're very much welcome.
Very much a word salad there from Prime Minister Carney, but I think you can learn a lot by something someone doesn't say. The Prime Minister was asked point blank by Rosemary, and by the way, I don't usually come off very complimentary of Rosemary Barton because I find that her bias is never declared, but she's very, very left-leaning in my estimation, and she seems to show favoritism when she's doing interviews with people on the left. That's the way I see it anyway, but there has been at least a little bit of pushback, at least trying to get an answer out of the Prime Minister. And of course, the whole point of a year-end interview is for the Prime Minister to answer the media's questions. And he's not really doing that here, specifically on that topic. Rosemary asked him point blank, are you actively trying to recruit Conservative MPs to cross the floor? And by actively recruiting, I mean high pressure sales tactics. Get them in the office, sit them down with the Prime Minister, offer them the picture, maybe give them some money for their riding, do whatever else is getting promised. I have no idea. There's a ton of Conservative MPs that are saying, oh, they're actively trying to recruit us. They're begging us to cross the floor, and they're making promises. Why won't the Prime Minister just admit that? The original question was, are you comfortable getting a majority government even though Canada's electorate did not give you one? They wanted you to have a minority parliament, and that's why Canadians voted the way they did. Are you comfortable getting a majority so that you have carte blanche and you can pass anything you want without having been given a majority government? The Prime Minister didn't say he was uncomfortable with it, meaning he is comfortable with it. If you want to go back, if I'm missing some nuance there, please hit that rewind button, listen to it. You should be confident in this if this topic comes up over the holidays. The Prime Minister couldn't get a majority government. The Canadian people said no. So now he's trying to recruit people from other parties to cross the floor, and he's being shady about even acknowledging that. If he's doing that, I think he should own it. Yeah, I'm the Prime Minister, we're the governing party, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get a majority government. Why won't he just be honest with the Canadian people? Well, the reality is he would be even more unpopular if he did that. The current polls say that if an election were held today, it would be a thin conservative majority government. The window for the Liberals to try and get a majority was back right around the time the budget came out. That's closing rapidly. And as I said earlier, we're going to get a lot of bad news in the first 3 months of 2026. Things are not going to improve that much for Prime Minister Carney unless he can manufacture some sort of a new crisis. I'm going to change gears here, though. Now we need to hear from the leader of the opposition, potentially the next Prime Minister of Canada. That's the way it looks based on the polls anyway. Pierre Poilievre is doing a number of year-end interviews, and I'm going to play some audio from a number of them. I want to start off with someone who I like a lot. People have asked me in the past, where else can I get content that's similar to yours? I always forget to mention Brian Lilly from the Toronto Sun. Brian is an excellent reporter, very, very good on social media. I don't have any bad things to say about Brian at all. And he does seem to have the ear of Pierre Poilievre. They sat down for a year-end interview, and I want to play just a little bit of this. This is courtesy of the Toronto Sun and Brian Lilly with Pierre Poilievre.
Right now, you're going through a moment in your party, a lot of speculation about floor crossing. There's been two. There's been a resignation. You look at the polling numbers. Your polling numbers are actually good. The party's doing well. You are on the number one issue of affordability. Are you finding it hard to break through as you deal with the drama of, is another person going to cross the floor? Is Mark Carney going to get a majority? Are you able to break through?
Well, I mean, we're breaking through with somebody because, as you said, we are at the highest, not only the highest of any party in some of the polls, but we're higher than we've been in 40 years, basically, since the 1980s. So somebody likes what I have to say, but it is frustrating that, obviously the Liberal media doesn't want to talk about affordability and the cost of living, the crime crisis, the continued out of control immigration. And so there's a distraction, and I think we need to focus on people's daily lives again. It'd be nice if when people turned on the news they could talk about how we're going to make it possible for them to afford groceries, which are going through the roof, or how our young people are actually going to be able to afford homes, rather than political and parliamentary intrigue.
Well, I do want to talk about those, but let's stick with the distraction for a moment. We'll spend more time on the meat.
Right.
Let's stick with the appetizer. What are you doing to manage your caucus, to reach out, to make sure that there isn't another Michael Ma or Chris D'Entremont that is going to say, you know what, the pool looks better over there, it looks warm, I'll jump in?
Well, we have to unite around issues. That's the best way to go forward. And our biggest issue is affordability, because our MPs are going to go back to their ridings over the Christmas break and find that their constituents can't afford groceries. They're going to have, a lot of folks will struggle to put dinner on Christmas dinner on the table, with grocery prices expected to be up another $1,000 a year for the family of four in Canada. That will be the biggest issue. So we need to remind all of our MPs, but actually they don't really need to be reminded, they already know it, that the reason that the Canadians sent us here was to fight for an affordable life, affordable food, affordable homes, affordable fuel. And that's the unifying issue that keeps us together.
Good words there from Pierre Poilievre, and I think he's absolutely right. Right now, Pierre is very aware of what's going on with the mainstream media. You see, when there wasn't an election in the fall, right after the budget, the next project for the media was, we've got to help the Liberals get rid of Pierre Poilievre. And they did it so dishonestly. They tried to gaslight Canadians and make them think Pierre Poilievre is very unpopular. Oh, even conservatives don't like Pierre. The conservatives are falling apart because of Pierre Poilievre's leadership. And that's simply not true. It's not even close to true. Again, if an election were held today, Pierre Poilievre would win a majority government. I think they're just sort of hoping that people don't look at the polls. And frankly, how can you not? Again, that's the prime minister in waiting right now that you just heard from, Pierre Poilievre. And I think he's talking about the things that Canadians want to talk about. The prime minister can't really talk about the affordability issue because he had a chance to fix it and didn't. The prime minister can't talk about crime. He had numerous opportunities to get that bail reform bill passed and didn't do it. The prime minister can't talk about successes in immigration because we've still got an out of control immigration system. The prime minister can't talk about how great the economy's doing because it's not really doing that great. Pierre Poilievre has a distinct advantage here as leader of the opposition because not only can he call it out, This is an opportunity for Pierre, and this would be my advice to him over the next few weeks. Sure, talk about how broken things are, but give people what they want the most right now. Sure, people would like to go back to the way things were, the Canada we once knew before things got so out of control. But at the end of the day, what people really want, and what I hear every day, is they want hope. They want a little bit of hope that things are going to get better or that they're getting better. Hearing the Prime Minister say, oh, things are great, I don't think that placates very many people, because I think people see through it, and people have got real world nagging issues as they listen to the Prime Minister say everything is great. I don't think people buy it. There's a good balance that can be struck here for Pierre Poilievre if he talks about, yes, how things are broken, but also how we're going to fix them. I find it very interesting to hear the Prime Minister. Sorry. Wow, I did that. And I didn't even mean to. I find it very, very nice when I hear the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, talk about his plan. The simple act of cutting taxes would make such a big difference and instantly put more money in people's pockets. And Pierre isn't just saying he's going to cut taxes. He's saying he's going to cut a lot of taxes. First of which, the industrial carbon tax. That's going to bring down the price on just about everything. But then people need more money in their pocket as well while prices are coming down. So we're talking income tax cuts, cut to the deductions that come off your checks in general. There's a lot of different taxes he could cut, and we need it. So I'm all for it. If the Prime Minister wants to have a conversation about cutting taxes, I'll listen to him on it, but he's not the one talking about it. Pierre Poilievre is the one talking about cutting taxes. And again, as I see it, that is the simple, fastest, most effective way to put more money in people's pockets is don't take as much of it in the first place. Now I want to switch gears here and go to a year-end interview that Pierre Poilievre did with Vassy Kapelos on CTV. Here's a little bit of that one.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Welcome back to studio. Thank you so much for making the time.
Merry Christmas. Good to be back.
Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. I want to start off. I have a number of questions on inflation and pipelines, but I do want to start off on the political events of the last week. Can you tell supporters of your party who are watching right now that there will not be more MPs who leave the Conservatives for the Liberal Party?
Well, what I can tell them is that everyone who ran for the Conservatives ran on our platform to make this an affordable, safe country, and to do the opposite of what the Liberals have done, which is to drive up inflation, double the deficit, unleash crime. And so anybody who has crossed the floor has gone against the affordable safety platform that we put forward in the last election. And I think Canadians have a reasonable expectation that when you run on a platform to bring down the cost of living, to control spending, to lock up criminals, that you shouldn't then go and join the party that's doing precisely the opposite.
I do understand that expectation, but I also remember covering back in September of 2018 when Leona Alislev made the converse decision to leave the Liberals, come to the Conservative Party. You were a member of caucus. I remember the caucus rising and applauding her, giving her a standing ovation as she made her way into the room. I remember Andrew Scheer at the time, now your House Leader, then the leader of the party, saying disenfranchised Liberal supporters are wanted and needed in the Conservative Party. Why was it okay then and terrible now?
Well, first of all, I think there's occasions when people have a difference of principle, or their party goes against what the party had run on the last election. In other words, the party leaves them rather than them leaving the party, and that's not the case here. The members in question openly criticized Mark Carney for doubling the deficit. One of them even said that the grocery prices that Mark Carney is imposing on Canadians are inhumane, and that's a quote. So to then, within weeks, go and support those inhumane grocery prices, that rampaging deficit, the soft on crime laws goes directly against what they ran on. But it has basically renewed my commitment to do the job that Canadians, roughly 8.1 million Canadians voted to send us here to do, which is to fight for an affordable Canada so that people can actually go to a grocery store and buy a basket of goods, feed their family without feeling anxious that their bank account has been emptied.
And I do have a lot of questions for you on how you would navigate that if you were going to become Prime Minister. But when you say, for example, that what this MP Michael Ma is doing or Chris D'Entremont is different than Leona Alislev, I feel it's full that people left.
Lowering the income taxes. He has said that he wants a majority up grocery prices, housing costs, and crime. Canadians voted against.
I ask because two Liberal ministers, Minister McKinnon.
Because frankly, people need hope again that things can get a soft on crime policy that was not consistent. But it has basically renewed my commitment to do the job that Canadians, roughly 8.1 million Canadians voted to send us here to do, which is to fight for an affordable Canada so that people can actually go to a grocery store and buy a basket of goods, feed their family without feeling anxious that their bank account has been emptied.
Before we hear a little bit more from Vassy Kapelos and Pierre Poilievre, I think that that's a perfectly reasonable explanation for why the Conservatives were happy when a Liberal crossed to the Conservative Party, was it 7-8 years ago now? And why they're unhappy that they've got a Conservative crossing to the Liberals. That was the explanation. Leona Alislev used to be a member of Parliament in Aurora, Ontario, and she left the Liberal Party to join the Conservative Party way back when Andrew Scheer was the leader. And yeah, the Conservatives did cheer that on. Now, Leona would argue, I was a Liberal when I ran. I didn't change. The Liberal Party changed under Justin Trudeau. Is there anybody who disagrees with that? That the Justin Trudeau Liberals and now the Mark Carney Liberals are very different than the Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin Liberals. There's so much daylight between the two parties, even though it's the same party. The Liberals went very, very hard to the left. They made a choice to do that under Justin Trudeau, and there was a lot of people that were centrist Liberals that felt that that wasn't appropriate. Now, you could make the same argument about the Conservatives. You could say that Chris D'Entremont and Michael Maw, those are center Conservatives, and the Conservatives under Pierre have gone to the far right. That's a talking point that I hear from a lot of people. All I would ask you about that, and this is my challenge to people who say that Pierre is not a centrist, that Pierre is far right. Which specific policy is far right that the Conservatives are proposing? Which specific one? You need to ask that question of your left-leaning friends and make them answer it. What is far right about what Pierre Poilievre is proposing? Because I've got this theory that Pierre isn't far right. I've got a theory that the middle has shifted very far to the left because that's where the Liberals and New Democrats took it. The middle is still the middle, and I don't see how the Conservatives are far right. Would it be because they want to cut taxes? Is that far right? Is it far right to say that people who are criminals in our country should be deported? Is it far right to think that we need to be tough on crime and lock up criminals? Is it far right to think that people should be able to afford a home and groceries in their own country? I don't know where the far right angle comes in, but that's a serious accusation from those on the left. If politics comes up over the holidays, and it probably will at some time, there's your question. If you want a centrist government in Canada, and we've always had a centrist government for the most part, it was Trudeau that took the Liberals very far left. But for the most part, the vast majority of Canadians are in the center. What is not centrist about what Pierre Poilievre is proposing? That's my challenge to you on the left. Tell me what is not centrist. What is far right? Is it because he believes that women and girls in sports deserve protection and shouldn't have to compete or change in the same room with biological males? Is that the far right thing that you guys are hung up on? Because frankly, I don't see it. I think that's just gaslighting by the media. The middle may have shifted left, but the vast majority of people did not go left. They're still in the center waiting for someone to meet them there. And if I'm being honest, I think it's the Conservatives that have. Let's do one more on this line of questioning. Then I'm going to flip to a different year-end interview with Pierre Poilievre.
I didn't hear you say that you unequivocally don't think other MPs will leave for the Liberals. I asked because two Liberal ministers, Minister McKinnon, Minister Hodgson, have both intimated that there are others who have approached them. If MPs in your party were happy with you and your leadership, wouldn't they stay?
Well, I think the minister...
Can I just say, I normally really enjoy Vassy. I think she does a great job. I don't know if this is a mandate from the higher ups at CTV and Bell or if this is Vassy's own personal agenda, but holy cow, is she ever trying hard to keep this narrative in the news that people are leaving the Conservative Party because they don't like Pierre Poilievre. You've already heard the Prime Minister refuse to deny that he is throwing things in front of Conservative MPs to try and lure them over. They're actively trying to recruit it. Some people just don't have the backbone or the stones to say, no, On my principle, I am a conservative. I was elected as a conservative, and I'm going to sit on the conservative side of the House of Commons, and I'm going to oppose anything that makes life in this country more unaffordable. Why is the media still trying so hard to make this about Pierre Poilievre and not about Mark Carney? Let's hear Pierre Poilievre's response. This is a good one.
Ministers you just mentioned, along with Mr. Carney, are trying to manipulate an undemocratic majority that Canadians rejected that would drive up grocery prices, housing costs, and crime. Canadians voted against the rampant inflation Liberals have caused. They voted against out-of-control spending. They voted against the soft-on-crime laws and the open border immigration policies that Liberals have imposed. And if Mark Carney believes that he should have a majority to go ahead with the high-cost policies he's running on, then he should get that mandate from Canadians in an election, not through dirty backroom deals.
How is it his fault that people left your party? I can't even understand the argument after one MP.
Okay, I'm just going to cut off Vashi there. I got to do it. This is obnoxious. This is completely obnoxious. The media just going absolutely over the top to try and convince anybody watching that Pierre Poilievre is not the right guy and that they'll have better fortunes with another leader. I asked this question late last week, and I'm going to ask it again. Maybe this is one that will come up during your political conversations over the holidays. If Pierre was truly that unpopular, wouldn't the Liberals want to run against him? If he was truly that unpopular, wouldn't the media be dying to see Pierre go up against Mark Carney so Mark can trounce him and get a majority government? The reality is, Pierre Poilievre is extremely popular. Middle-class Canadians identify with Pierre. Young Canadians, in particular, see hope in Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. And the media cannot reconcile that. They are either chew up their own ass to understand how real middle-class Canadians feel, or they've been given marching orders and they are going to keep trying to implement this agenda that Pierre must go. I'm going to not air any more of this CTV interview with Pierre Poilievre because you've heard enough, I think. You get the idea. There's one party that is looking for affordability to be on the ballot. There's a party that's looking for crime and immigration and so on to be on the ballot. And the Liberals just don't want to get behind that. And, well, the mainstream media, the Liberals are, they're quite in bed with them. That's probably the nicest way that I can put it. One more interview clip that I want to play. Global News did a sit-down interview as well with Pierre Poilievre year-end. Donna Friesen. Let's play a little bit of this one.
Is it possible that in the last election, many Canadians just thought you weren't the man for the moment and that it's your leadership that's the issue?
Well, my leadership got us a record number of votes. I know you don't like me.
No, you said it. I think that's the fourth time.
It is a fact, though, right?
Oh, my God. All of them. All of the mainstream media are trying so hard to paint this picture that Pierre must go. This is a Hail Mary from the left. They know that when we go to the polls, when we have a vote, and the middle class finally will not be denied their voice, it's not going to be pretty for the Prime Minister. Despite what you're seeing in the news, it's not going to be good for the Prime Minister. I can't see it any other way. And frankly, I don't know what it's going to take to get the mainstream media to just start being fair again and asking relevant questions. Rosemary Barton had the most aggressive interview the Prime Minister has done since he became Prime Minister. And that wasn't that aggressive. I'm going to switch gears here. Thank you very much to CTV and Vashi Capellos. Thank you very much to Global National and Donna Friesen. And thank you very much to the CBC and Rosemary Barton for that audio. Now I want to play something. This comes from Rebel News. It was Ezra Levant doing a sit-down year-end interview with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. One part in particular that I want to play for you is an exchange on immigration. We had a consensus on immigration in this country for a very long time, and it worked very well until the Trudeau Liberals broke that consensus and started going towards an open borders policy, trying to bring as many people as possible, whether they should be here or not, whether they were checked or not. They tried to bring them to Canada. They still are. Well, let's hear what Alberta thinks about that policy and the way things need to go to reset our consensus on immigration.
I think part of it is that people see obviously bogus refugees and bogus temporary foreign workers who are not specialists that we can't get, not seasonal crop pickers. Like, people see that all these different categories, the diploma mill, fake school students, I think part of it is people feel taken advantage of.
Completely.
I was talking to Michelle Garner-Rempel of the Federal Conservatives, who's their immigration critic, and I said to her, there's all these people who their visas have expired and they have not been asked to leave. I said, would you support mass deportations or remigration? And to my surprise, she said yes, even if the number's hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions. That word remigration, I've seen it used in the States. They're talking about it in the UK. Do you think that perhaps it's time that Canada say to those who have overstayed, time to go home?
Well, the first step is making sure that you're not bringing people here who don't have a job to come to. So I think that's one part of it. The second part is, for those who are here and have a job and have a pathway to permanent migration, let's just be compassionate and find those permanent residents, give them permanent residency status so they can start on that journey. But anyone who doesn't have a job, doesn't have prospects, absolutely, why would they stay? It's not good for them. It's not good for the taxpayer. It doesn't allow for them to have to be able to pay for the things that they're going to need to support themselves and their families. It seems to me that we've got to get back to the kind of system that works not only for us as the host country, but also for the person who's coming here. And I can tell you that I think that there's a lot of those newcomers, the immigrant citizens, who came the right way and did things properly and followed the rules. And I think they're just as frustrated to see that there have been a lot of rule breakers, and they want us to do something about it. So we'll find out. We're going to very likely put this to a vote in the new year, and we'll see what Albertans have to say about it.
And how would it go to a vote? Would there be a bill, for example, to restrict benefits? Is that what you mean?
I'm thinking of a referendum. I think that if we're going to do something as dramatic as assert our rights under Section 95 of the Constitution, that we need to get a mandate from the people.
That's incredible. Are there any other issues that you propose to put to a referendum?
We'll be making a decision as a cabinet and caucus next year about which ones they'll put forward. But I would say that immigration emerged as probably the number one issue that I heard about.
Okay, so Premier Smith suggests that, yeah, we should have a referendum on immigration. We should find out how Canadians actually feel about immigration and try and figure out the best path forward. One more clip that I want to play from Danielle Smith on immigration. This one is only 30 seconds long, similar to what you just heard her say, but said a little bit differently. This one's a little more direct.
You should come to Alberta because you have a job. You should be a taxpayer first. And then if you want to stay and become a permanent resident, that's when you can bring in your wife and your kids, and you can start on the pathway to permanent citizenship. We believe that those who are not here in a permanent status should be treated like tourists. And as a tourist, you don't go to somebody else's country and say, pay for my child care, pay for my education, pay for my health care, pay for my long-term care, give me a pension. We have to get back to something approaching a consensus around immigration again. And so that's what we're going to be looking to Albertans to see if they want to give us a mandate to do that.
And I think that that's where Canadians are right now. I think all Canadians would agree with it. They touched on it earlier. And again, thank you to Ezra Levant and Rebel News for that audio with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. People don't want to be taken advantage of anymore. These people that are just coming here, taking up our resources, taking up our spots in the hospitals and in walk-in clinics and at family doctors. People that are taking taxpayer money and a ton of handouts to stay in hotels and all of the other things that we have given these people who have come to Canada. $10 a day childcare, free drugs, free dental care, all of it. Canadians have had enough. Canadians paid into this system. We're the reason that those things are in place in the first place. And then someone comes here having never paid a penny into the Canadian tax system and gets the same benefits as somebody who's paid all their life. Shouldn't be that way. I like where Alberta's going with this. Yes, maybe we do need to have a referendum, or maybe we just get back to the way it was. I'm okay with government making that decision that we're going to get back to the way it was. That there are no handouts and we are not letting anybody come here unless they've got a job and a place to live and someone who's willing to vouch for them. And while we're at it, let's also make sure that they don't have a criminal record, that they're not wanted anywhere, and that they're not a part of some terror group. These are the minimal things that we should ask of our government, and they're not getting done, and they haven't been for a very long time. Along the same lines, although I'm not trying to draw a parallel here, there was a speech that was given over the weekend at a Turning Point USA action meeting in America. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance was on stage speaking, and one of the things he talked about was immigration. But he did it in a different way, almost through a DEI lens. Listen to VP J.D. Vance.
Unlike the left, we stand against treating anybody, and I love what Nikki said about this. We don't treat anybody different because of their race or their sex. So we have relegated DEI to the dustbin of history, which is exactly where it belongs. In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore. And if you're an Asian, you don't have to talk around your skin color when you're applying for college, because we judge people based on who they are, not on ethnicity and things they can't control. We don't persecute you for being male, for being straight, for being gay, for being anything. The only thing that we demand is that you be a great American patriot, and if you're that, you are very much on our team.
Just a little bit of Vice President Vance speaking this weekend, and you know what? I mean, that is very much a core conservative value. What he just said is something that doesn't come up very often because of the DEI push. It became very unpopular to say things like that for a long time. That's very interesting coming from the second highest office in America and arguably the second highest office in the world, Vice President of the United States of America. Friends, officially, that's going to do it for me for the holidays, but unofficially, like I said at the beginning, I might put out some more episodes between now and when I return on, I believe it's Monday, January the 5th, that I'm going to be back kicking off season 2, the 2026 era here on Scott Fox After 9. Before I go, though, I said I would talk a little bit about the holidays. I need this break. I know a lot of you need this break too. I know there's a lot of people that are very, very stressed, and there's a lot of people concerned about the direction our country's going in. There's a lot of people who are just concerned about trying to make it by, that are just trying to survive. But we're not all in the same boat. If you have money, you probably do not realize how bad things are for the middle class in Canada right now. If you're financially secure, if your mortgage is paid off, if you're living off of a government pension and you don't have a care in the world, maybe you don't realize how bad it is. Last year, I asked you to have a little bit of empathy for people on the left who just don't see how bad Trudeau is. And that was the conversation we were having a year ago. Things are really bad in this country, and some people don't see it. They think everything is great because of Trudeau. Well, let me flip it around this year. This year, I'm going to ask you folks on the left who are doing just fine and think Mark Carney is just the cat's meow. I'm going to ask you to have a little empathy for the middle class. Someone or some people, the group, however you want to put it. I wake up every single day thinking about the people on my street, thinking about my kids, thinking about my friends, thinking about the people that listen to me on the radio, that download this podcast. Every single day, I wake up thinking about the middle class, and I wonder, how the hell are people doing it? You have so much less money in your pocket now than you did not that long ago. And the money you do have is worth a lot less than it used to be worth. I don't know how the hell you're doing it, but I salute you. I don't know how the hell I'm doing it. There's a lot of people who are in a very desperate way right now, and something's got to change in this country. We said it last year, and then we got all excited about the possibility of change, and then the bait and switch. They promised change, we got the same. I really, really firmly believe we are going to be having an election in 2026. I believe you will soon be seeing Prime Minister Pierre running this country. I think our immigration system is going to get fixed. I think crime is about to be punished harshly. I think our taxes are going down. I think prices at the grocery store and at the gas pump and everywhere else are going down. I think Canada is going to start being respected on the world stage again. I think all of these things are possible in 2026. We just need to vote. Friends, Merry Christmas. And don't be afraid to say that. Happy Hanukkah. And don't be afraid to say that. Happy holidays. There's nothing wrong with saying that either. Let's be inclusive. Let's try and enjoy some time off. We're going to get real fired up because things are going to get real ugly in the first few months of 2026. Believe me, I'm not wrong about these things. I was right about most of what happened this year. And I'm telling you, January, February, and March are going to get ugly here in Canada. Before that happens, we've got a nice little window here to be civil. We've got a nice little window here to celebrate our family and friends, to love the people that we're with, to be present, to show a little bit of affection for not just the people we care about the most, but for the country we live in. It was great. It will be great again. We're in a rut right now, but I really do think the best is yet to come. I will remain the eternal optimist. And before I go, this was a big risk for me this year. I lost my job just over a year ago, working for Chorus Entertainment, and I was fortunate enough that in April I did get a new job in radio again. I thought I was done. I thought I was out of this business, but I did get hired again by Light 92.1. That is the Evanoff Communications Company, and a big shout out to Paul Evanoff and his team for seeing the bigger picture and bringing me in to do this. But at the beginning of last year, I resolved that I was just going to be a podcaster, and I'm going to use that platform and my voice and my knowledge to try and support the middle class, to try and show the middle class that there is a different way, and to try and counter the narrative from the mainstream media. I had no idea that a year later I'd be talking about the fact that there was 20 million minutes listened to this podcast in 1 year, less than a year. Over 20 million minutes listened by hundreds of thousands of Canadians. Far bigger than I ever could have imagined. I am going to take it to the next level in 2026. You want merch? Merch is coming. You want live shows? Oh, they're coming too. Don't worry. And it's going to be a lot of fun the way I've got this planned out. I have so many big plans for 2026. And the fact that you're listening to this episode right now, you made it right to the end of the final official episode of 2025, means that you are one of my OGs. It means you are somebody that I'm counting on to help spread the word. It means that you and I are friends. Thank you so much for listening. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. I will catch you back here in 2026, but there are going to be a few episodes that drop between now and then. I've got one on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I've got another one on cannabis that I'm trying to get out, trying to coordinate that one right now. And another one, the tell-all with Silent Date Guy. Thanks for an amazing year, friends. I love you so much. I appreciate the hell out of you. Happy holidays. I'll see you next year.